Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's poppin', Fantasy Champions? How we doing, fam?
What's up?
My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me as always.
Just chilling.
We have a fun episode for you today. Tight ends are boring. I will say that. Hey, you might be a tight end stan. You might be a guy that loves tight ends. Drafts Travis Kelce top 5 this year.
That's right.
But
Kyle Pitts, second round.
I am not a tight end stan. I'll let you know who to draft at the tight end position between rounds 10 and 15 in August, and it'll be right, and you'll win your league.
We have been hitting the nail on the head with tight ends the last 2 years.
I'm a little bit nervous about this year, though, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean,
there doesn't seem to be any tight ends in the later rounds.
Obvious ones. No, I got my guy.
Okay. Well, I know you, Hunter Henry.
Yeah. No. I mean,
yeah, no. It is though.
I hope it's Hunter
Don't
Henry.
Admit that you love Hunter Henry.
I'm admitting that I love Hunter Henry. I'm just saying I got somewhere else.
Who is that other person?
Oh, you'll have to find out some more time.
Oh, see, there you go. Sneak peek into our August programming. So anyway, we got top 12 wide receivers today. We're going to try to go relatively quickly with this group of guys, unlike the running back show that was at 57 minutes last week.
Yeah.
So we'll try to make this a half hour. Just crush it, get
We
it
can do
done.
that. Probably.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm going to hold myself to it. But before we jump into that, check out our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. Just type FF Champs, the Fantasy Champions, whatever you do, you'll find us eventually. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and then like and comment down below anything that you would like to add or have questions about pertaining to our rankings. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with your friends. Also, we have the Draft Guide coming out very, very soon. July 16th is when it launches. You want to get this thing at $9.99 right now at a cheap value for your dynasty, our dynasty, and redraft rankings, breakouts, bust, sleepers, player projections, and a bunch of other nonsensical hoopla that we throw in there.
Yes, sir.
So by now, be lame or not.
You know you want to buy it. It's going to help.
It will help. You know you need it. You're like, I'm going to buy this, and you'll wait until August to buy it, but you're going to buy it. Just buy it now, so it's not as expensive.
Just do it now. Yeah.
So we'll give you a second.
Save yourself. Yeah. La, 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 la. Okay.
All right, good. All right, so let's move into our top 12 wide receivers for the 2021 fantasy football season. It should be an interesting show. I'm excited to see where we have guys, where it differs, and what ends up being the consensus. So, as normal, we're going to go off the consensus top 12, and then if there's any variations, we'll explain it. I believe we only have one more ranking show to go here in the month of, into July, I guess, because today's July 1st. Right? We have quarterbacks next week, so be sure to tune in for that. But either way, at the wide receiver position, the ECR consensus wide receiver 1 right now is Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
And you have him too. I have him too. So,
there's a specific reason for that, though.
Okay, I'm interested to hear your specific reason. Now, Tyreek Hill is absurd. He is ridiculous. I feel like he was ridiculous before Mahomes walked around, but now he's even more ridiculous. And I feel like Tyreek Hill, if you want to make that assessment of him being, he might end up being my wide receiver 1 overall if certain things happen in Green Bay. But the thing with Tyreek Hill, for me, more particularly, is that he doesn't get over 140 targets generally. Never done that in his entire career. He got hurt in 2019, shoulder injury, I believe. So he didn't play a full gamut of games. We probably would have finished with 120, 130 that season. So he gets a decent target share. His thing is he is the main weapon in the Patrick Mahomes passing attack.
Which is ridiculous.
I'm just going to take the last 3 years, okay? The last 3 years with Patrick Mahomes as his starting quarterback and give you the averages per season that on a per 16 game basis over the last 3 years of what he would finish with.
Okay.
134 targets a season, 86 catches a season on average, 1,345 yards a season.
That's a lot of yards per reception.
13 touchdowns.
That is
per
stupid.
season. He's had 12, 7, and 15, and he only played 12 games in 2019.
That's so ridiculous.
And then he also has an average of 16 rushing attempts for 111 yards and 1 touchdown per season as well. So take that with a grain of salt. But I think if there's any wide receiver in fantasy football outside both of our number one, which we'll get to, Tyreek Hill is probably the safest bet at wide receiver that you can get.
Yes. Playing in that offense, being the number one weapon, I think with his play style too, he doesn't need those targets in the way they use him. And he's playing with Patrick Mahomes. Like he can so easily.
Yep.
Against you, I believe he had like 30 points in the first quarter, and then didn't he finish that game with like 55?
I lost.
Yep. Not by much, right?
No. I should have won. I should have spanked the guy.
But Tyreek Hill, 55 fantasy points. And like
how
in the
mad
past,
I think it broke my phone that night.
that's awesome.
Cracked
in
glass
the past,
and all. So much anger. Rage.
Dude, I love fantasy football. But in the past, he would have inconsistent weeks, right? He would get like 5 fantasy points, then he'd get 25, then he'd get 7,
right?
He'd get 28. The last year, he was actually pretty consistent. And he only had like one game where he exploded, and it was that game. But throughout the most of the season, he was getting like 10 to 20 every week.
Like when I was looking through his numbers earlier in the off season, I was like, what happens if we take the 55-point game out? And he was still wide receiver 2.
Yeah. He was very clearly the wide receiver 2 last year. And the only reason I have him as the wide receiver 2 is because of the situation going on with Davante Adams.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why he is wide receiver 1 right now.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. For people's rankings, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And I think for me and Rick, I don't want to speak for Rick, but I think we both probably will move him up to 1 if certain events happen with Aaron Rodgers.
Which we can talk about now.
Yes, we'll jump right into that right now. So the ECR number 2 guy is Davante Adams. We both have Adams 1. Now, Adams, to just quickly go over his ridiculousness, Davante Adams always gets 150 to 160 targets. He's a guy that is always at the top 3. Like, if he has our good friend Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback, he's going to be the number 2, number 3, number 1, 2, or 3 wide receiver in fantasy football. Like, it's a lock with the amount, as long as he stays healthy, the amount of production that this guy puts up and the amount of targets that he gets in an offense. Like, he had 149 targets last year in just 14 games played.
So ridiculous.
It's absurd. Like, he would have got 170 targets had he played every game. Somewhere around that. I probably, that's a little bit overzealous. But, like 165 to 170 is probably a safe bet. But he had 115 catches. He missed. He would have had 100 catch seasons in a row had he played a full 2019. But it's like, and he had 18 touchdowns last year. And in 2 years prior, he had 13 touchdowns in 2018. And if you don't include the 2019 year where he got hurt, he's had 12 touchdowns, 10 touchdowns, 13 touchdowns, and 18 touchdowns over the last 5 seasons. He's had 4 10-plus touchdown seasons. Like, he is ridiculous. He's always going to be a top 3 guy with Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback. The question is, does Rodgers stay? I don't know.
I don't know.
Does he stay or does he go? Boom, 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 boom.
It's funny. I did the opposite with Aaron Jones. I ranked him assuming Rodgers is gone, but with Adams, I had to rank him assuming he stays because, as you said, like, you can't really move someone like Adams down unless you're confident Rodgers is gone. Because the year he had last season was so ridiculous. And I remember we both loved Davante Adams last year. We were very high on him. Mm-hmm. And I wish I was higher. The dude had pretty much 301 fantasy points and half PPR in 14 games. That was the best wide receiver season in the past 5 years other than Antonio Brown 2015. You have to go back to 2015 where Antonio Brown had 314 fantasy points.
Mm-hmm.
So he only had 14 fantasy points more in 2 full games played. So you can make the argument Devontae Adams has had like the best fantasy season last year among receivers in the last like 10 years. Like he had a ridiculous season last year.
Yeah.
And it really wouldn't change if Rodgers comes back.
No.
The question is Rodgers coming back? I don't know. And if he doesn't, if Jordan Love is the quarterback or Blake Bortles or something for the Packers, Devontae Adams is going to take a major hit.
Yeah.
Because those touchdowns are going to go down.
I don't even think I wouldn't move him down to 2 if Rodgers isn't there. I just straight up he'd probably move down to like where Michael Thomas is.
Yeah.
Maybe even lower. I don't know. But on the per 16, just so you know, over the last 4 if you took the last 5 seasons average and did a per 16 on each season, 154 targets a season, 103 receptions a season, 1,271 yards a season, 13 touchdowns a season. Like that's top 3 numbers.
So dumb.
He's ridiculous.
That is so dumb.
If Rodgers is there now, I told Rick, I think a couple weeks ago, I don't think it was on the pod, but I said if they're Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers both have question marks surrounding them. It used to be Russell Wilson a part of that conversation, but Wilson said, I'm playing for Seattle. I only think one man is going to end up on a different team. And I think Deshaun Watson is so grounded in him not going back to Houston at this point, and they're Houston essentially showing that they don't really want, not that they don't want Watson, they would definitely keep him, but they're understanding that he might not play at all this year if they don't trade him, or that they're just going to straight up trade him when they drafted a guy in the 3rd round at quarterback. So I think if there's a quarterback to move, it would be Watson. I don't think Rodgers is going anywhere, at least this season. I think Rodgers is going to play for Green Bay this year. They're going to figure something out. They're going to give him extra money. I don't know what it's going to take, but they'll end up figuring something out with Rodgers to make him happy. And he'll end up playing for the team this year. And so with that being said, that's why I have Adams number 1, because I think Rodgers will play for the team. But overall, if he doesn't, like I said, he's going to move down. So, moving on. Stefon Diggs right now, ECR number 3. I personally have him. You have him 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have him 3. So we're right there. The only thing different about our top 3 than the ECR is Tyreek Hill. So now Diggs is really good. I do have a little bit of hesitation with Stefon Diggs, and
just because you're anti-Bills.
No, I love the Bills. Well, I mean, Bills Mafia all the way, but like, I don't hate the Bills. I just there's a stigma around Josh Allen, despite him being really good last year. There's just the stigma that he just will crap himself. And I don't know why I have that feeling, but there's nothing for me to believe that that's going to happen. I mean, he had 166 targets last year, and 127 catches for 1,535 yards and 8 touchdowns. Now, I don't want to just say that you need to have facts behind this. What'd you say?
He had 1,500 yards last year.
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yes, he had
1,500.
Man. So I don't want to say, like, and this is what Minnesota, by the way, should have been doing with Stefon Diggs. Freaking idiots. But either way, I feel like I hate to just throw out nonsensical regression, like, and just say a guy's going to regress because he's going to regress. But like, if there's a guy that's going to regress a little bit, I would say it would be the Stefon Diggs, just a little bit.
See, I think this is just the Josh Allen thing in you. And I think it's, I don't think you're necessarily wrong. I just, the year that Diggs and Josh Allen had last year.
And I was a Diggs guy.
So
you talked
dominant.
me out of it last year, so.
I know, we switched roles. It's because I unfortunately, actually not unfortunately, they were actually entertaining this year. I watched a lot of Bills games.
Yeah.
And dude, I don't think I've seen, like, when it just comes to pure dominance wise, I thought Diggs for the whole course of the season was more dominant week to week than Tyreek Hill was. Tyreek Hill had that monster game against the Buccaneers and had some great games. It was consistently good. Mm-hmm. But Diggs, just every time Josh Allen needed him, he would go get it. It didn't matter if he was double covered or anything. Like, he was just a machine last year. I believe he led the NFL in receptions as well. And that combination, that duo, I don't think really changes. Nothing in that offense changed at all. They were able to even keep their offense coordinator.
Yeah.
It's not like Diggs is an old man. He's only 27. If anything, it's second year in the offense. The only thing, I mean, that I might be worried about is that regression from Josh Allen.
Mm-hmm.
But Diggs, like, he's always been healthy. Now, granted, last year was the first season in his NFL career that he's played all 16.
Mm-hmm.
But he's never missed more than 3 games. So
I don't even think he played all 16 last year.
He did.
Yeah,
I have it right here.
Sorry.
Oh, he didn't start in all 16, but he played all 16. I don't know why. Oh, maybe week 17? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know why he only started 15. But he did play in all those games. I wouldn't expect him to play in all 16 this year, and that might end up hurting his value. Like if he plays 15 and 14 like he has in years past. But, I mean, the dude was a monster last year, and I really don't see it changing.
Now, the thing that was absurd, too, is that you see a guy like, this is like two sides of a coin. We just looked at Devontae Adams, and he had 18 touchdowns?
Yeah.
Diggs had 8 total on the season. He had 16 red zone targets total, and he caught 12 of them, but that was number 11 among wide receivers in the league, which is pretty high, but when you're talking about a guy that finished, what did he finish, top 3?
Yeah.
That is a pretty low number. And so there is one area for me in particular where Diggs doesn't have maybe a regression coming, and that's touchdowns. So even if he doesn't get to 127 catches or 1,500 yards, and it's more like 110 catches and 1,400 yards or something like that, if he catches 3 or 4 more touchdowns, there's no reason to believe that he can't finish top 3.
No, he would. Yeah, if anything, he'd be better off that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, because I will say the one stat I could see a regression in with Diggs is his catch percentage. I mean, he caught 76% of his passes last year on 166 targets. That is insane.
Yeah, right,
that is ridiculous.
I think the efficiency is definitely going to take a step back. Now, there's no reason, is there any reason for you to believe outright that the efficiency is going to go down? No changes to the offense.
Just the fact that was a career high in catch percentage.
Yeah, it sounds ridiculous.
That's the only reason.
I mean, there's no reason for me not.
76% though is like a lot of receivers you look at and they're at 65%.
Yeah.
66, 67. He was at 76% on 100, and it's not like he had 50 targets. 166 targets. That I would love to compare that to other historic seasons. That seems ridiculous to me.
Yeah. He's very good. So keep an eye on Stefon Diggs. I do like him. Right now his ADP currently is the 4th wide receiver off the board at ADP 13. So, I mean, if you're going to draft a wide receiver in the 2nd round, I feel like that's the guy. I definitely Hopkins is going ahead of him right now by 2 picks.
Yeah.
And I definitely wouldn't do that. So anyway, let's get into the next guy. Number 4 on the ECR is Calvin Ridley. You have him, what was it?
I have him 4. You convinced me last second. I had him 3, but I moved him down a spot, made it 4.
Okay, and I have him 6. So the only reason why I have Calvin Ridley as 6 is because, and me and Rick have been talking about this, but Calvin Ridley obviously is a really good wide receiver. He's been good without Julio Jones in the lineup. He's been good with Julio Jones in the lineup. I remember when they were talking about Juju back in the day, and when he had his splits, when he had Antonio Brown in the lineup and when he didn't, and he was worse when he didn't have Juju, and we all overlooked it because we wanted Juju to be really good. And he just wasn't the same player without Antonio Brown on the other side flanking him. This is not the same with Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley has been fantastic without Julio Jones. He's been the same player without Julio Jones on the other side. So I don't think them not having Julio is going to be the same thing, but then they use Kyle Pitts, basically. He might not get targeted a lot this year, but they probably will use Kyle Pitts in the same role as Julio Jones. Maybe not fully, but he's the same, size essentially as Julio Jones, and he's going to be able to play that similar role and pull guys, the bigger corners, the bigger safeties off of Calvin Ridley a little bit, which is going to be good news for him. So I think he's going to be really good. The reason why I have him 6 is just because there's a big offensive change in Atlanta, one we've never seen before, and I project them right now at 520 passing targets or pass attempts, I should say, and 460 rushing attempts. So, I mean, they might pass it a little bit more than that. Rick's a little bit more generous with the passing attempts over there in Atlanta.
Yeah.
But if that happens, I think his target share is a little bit lower. And because of that, I would say Calvin Ridley won't finish as a top 5 wide receiver just because he has a smaller size. And I'm not saying it's definite that like he's not going to finish as a top 5 wide receiver. Like I think he still has that, but I would just take guys like Stefon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, Adams, AJ Brown, Hopkins, and guys like that ahead of Calvin Ridley. Yeah. And that's just kind of where he ends up falling in the long run.
Yeah. Last year he was, though, the wide receiver 4 in just 15 games. So he was like very clearly the wide receiver 4 last year. And that was with Julio for like half the season. So to me, without Julio, he's going to be the main guy. I do like Kyle Pitts a lot. I think where it just comes down to the difference between me and you, because we overall view Calvin Ridley as pretty much the same player. It's just how many times is Atlanta going to pass the ball next season. I think I have him at like 590 and you have him at like 525. So it's a big difference. And I think that's like a 20 target difference for Calvin Ridley. So
basically the vacated targets that people are factoring in Julio Jones leaving. I'm essentially saying that about 100 to 110 of those targets are not vacated, and there's only really 60 vacated targets, and you're adding Kyle Pitts. So that's why I'm like, to me, the target share is not changing for Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, no, I mean, and if that happens, then that is true. It wouldn't change for Calvin Ridley. I just don't know if there's going to be that big of a drop off.
Yeah.
And it's just going to come down to what Atlanta does.
Okay.
And that's going to be the only difference between us. But yeah, I mean, Ridley's a stud either way.
Fair enough. Number 5 on the ECR, DK Metcalf. Gross. I have Metcalf 9. Where do you have him?
I think I have him 8. So
I just don't get it. Can somebody in the comments explain to me Metcalf?
It's the player, man. He's just an exciting player to watch. But yeah,
Seattle doesn't sling the ball, and they like to run, ground and pound, all that crap. I'd love to see them sling it. But yeah, I just, to me, I'm not excited or exhilarated about DK Metcalf. I think he's a good wide receiver. I think he has potential to be a very good wide receiver in the NFL, but I would 100% take AJ Brown over him. I would take DeAndre Hopkins over him. I might even take Justin Jefferson over him. And that's not a hot take, but I say that in the context that I do take Justin Jefferson over him, by the way. So, I just don't feel that he is as elite as people think he is at this point. I think he's a fantastic wide receiver, and I think he has a good future in the NFL, but Seattle scares the living crap out of me every time I look at that football team and the amount that as long as Pete Carroll's there, I don't think he's going to get over 125 to 130 targets. And when you look at last year, I think he had 129 targets. So that's a good target share, but he didn't. Where did he finish?
Wide receiver 7, I think.
Wide receiver 7. So he had 130 targets last year, and he finishes the wide receiver 7. What makes the fantasy community think that Metcalf is going to get? Because either one of two things are going to happen. DK Metcalf gets more efficient, which is not going to happen because he was already efficient, or he gets more target share, which is not going to happen because Seattle is not going to throw the football more.
It's so weird though, because they did last year for a point. And then just something happened. They just stopped throwing the football. Yeah. Russell Wilson was throwing the ball like 35, 28, 40, 34, 32, 50, 37, 41, 37. Those first 9 weeks of the season, he had one game where he threw under 30 times. And then after that, all of a sudden they ran the ball more. Like they just switched their offense. 28, 31, 43, 27, 27. 32, 36. So he had 4 games under 30. Mm-hmm. So they just switched it halfway through the season. And it was so weird. I think Metcalf was like a top 5 receiver during that stretch. And I think people remember that. And he was a wide receiver 4 through those first few games. So people look at that and they're like, oh, he's a top 5 fantasy wide receiver. But after that point, he kind of fell off a little bit. And he finishes the wide receiver 7, as you said. But AJ Brown was wide receiver 11. And had more points per game. He just missed 2 games. So he would have had a better season. Adam Thielen had more points per game than DK Metcalf did last year. It's it's tough, man. I do like Metcalf, and I wish I owned him in Dynasty, especially. Like, he's a fun player to watch. He's a really skilled player, but by skilled, I mean more like athlete.
Yeah, he's a great athlete.
Yeah, no, he's fun to watch. It's just I think people are using that in their analysts a little bit and ranking him higher than he should be, because I don't think he should be ahead of AJ Brown. I don't think he should be ahead of DeAndre Hopkins, and I don't think he should be ahead of Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, I just, and I look at some of his numbers, like I said, and he had an 84.7% true catch rate. I'm trying to find 76% catchable target rate.
Now,
so I guess
I will say though,
there.
if they do throw the ball more, he will be a beast.
Oh,
like,
yeah, fair. Like, if he gets 150 targets,
it's
he's
just
a top
Pete
5.
Carroll, man. You're right.
And if you want to take him, like right now, he's going out as the number 6 wide receiver off the board. So if you want to take him in the second round, all the power to you. I just don't think he's going to be a top 3 wide receiver.
Yeah.
And I not that he's being ranked by the ECR there, but I have guys that I like ahead of him. And I, like I said, I look at this team and I'm like, I don't see any more efficiency metrics that he can improve upon. You know, like, he had a good catch rate last year. He had a good yards per reception last year. He had a good target share last year, right? As much of a target share as you can get in that Seattle offense when they pass it as much as, you know, the amount that they do. He had a good number of red zone targets in 16. He number 3 in the NFL in deep targets, number 2 in the NFL in air yards. So it's like he was efficient last year, very good. But I'm like, can he go any higher than what he did last year? And if he can't,
not at that target, not at those targets,
not at the target. So the only area that I look at that he can have an increase in is the target share. And if they don't throw the football more and he gets a 24-25% target share again, then
which is good,
which is very good, right? That's one that's in the league that's I think is number 19 in the NFL in target share percentage on their particular team. So like it's very good. But it's just one of those things where I just don't see DK Metcalf increasing any part of his efficiency metrics. And in turn, if he doesn't increase his target share, which is already relatively high, I don't see him jumping into that top 5 this year. Unless, like you said, something changes with Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson and they start chucking it. I mean, I don't know if that's going to happen.
They showed flashes of it last year, but
right.
They just didn't do it consistently.
I mean, ownership might have been like, listen, Russ is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. You gotta make him happy. And that could have happened. And if that did, then they might throw the football a lot. But there is guys that I like ahead of DK at this point. Let's talk about the next guy. My guy, AJ Brown. I should bust out, throw on the AJ Brown jersey at this point in the program because it probably would make more sense than this Red Sox jersey. So either way, I have him currently 4, and you have him where? 5, 6?
6.
6. Okay. So
but debatable with him. Like any one of my 4, 5, 6 can swap order. Like they're all very similar.
I've talked about AJ Brown a lot on this podcast, and he is like what people want DK Metcalf to be is what AJ Brown is. Yeah. And like you get these cute little like videos of like DK Metcalf chasing down an interception, like and like, okay, that's fun and all, and he's really fast, but can he play the wide receiver position at an elite level so he can be Devontae Adams? You know what I mean? Like, can that happen? Yes, I think it will in the future, but like, let's just like, I feel like he puts out so many like highlight videos and then they forget about the videos where you just go look on YouTube. If you're watching this podcast right after this, go look up DK Metcalf drops from the 2020 season.
Oh, I've seen the video you're talking about. Yeah.
It's so bad.
He
had one touchdown catch that went right through his hands and bounced off his face mask. Wide open. Like, there's sometimes Metcalf makes me wonder. He's got raw talent and potential, but he's just like, some things he's not there on. But anyway, last year, AJ Brown played through 14 games. Finished the season as the number 11 wide receiver. On a per-game basis, he was top 5. Top 6. So he was right there with Metcalf in that department. But the big thing about AJ Brown, he was 31st in air yards, right? 58th in deep targets, 24th in red zone targets, He had a team target share of 25%. So if he played a full season, he would have gotten to right around the same 120 targets. His catchable target rate was 77.4%, his 66% catch rate, and 85% true catch rate. So for me, I think that there is a little bit of an area for him to improve, A.J. Brown. And I think there's a lot of concerns surrounding Julio Jones coming there and him having the ability to have the same efficiency with Julio Jones, because Julio Jones is going to take a large chunk of targets. And I thought, without Julio Jones, I think he was going to get 160 targets, and he legitimately would have been my wide receiver 1 rank.
Yep.
If that was the case. But he is now my wide receiver 4 because he's not going to get the target share that I thought. Now, I hope he gets to 130, because if he reaches 130 like Metcalf does, he's top 3.
Yeah.
To me, at least.
Yeah, that's the thing with AJ Brown. Sorry. I have him 6, and just looking at it, I'm like, why did I even put him 6? He should be higher.
Yeah.
He should be 4 or 5, and even 3, maybe, with Diggs. I think Julio, now that I've had a little while to digest that, I think it probably did hurt a little just naturally because of the targets. But it's not a big blow. And dude, the Titans have 224 vacated targets. A lot of that will go to Julio, but that's still 100
120 will probably go to Julio.
But that's yeah, exactly. So that's 104 left if 120 go to Julio. So that means AJ Brown could, in theory, still get more. And I still can't get over the fact last year that he played with 2 injured knees, that he required surgery on both of them. Correct?
I believe so.
That is so ridiculous, and he was still on a point per game basis the number 5 receiver in fantasy last year.
It's fantastic.
I mean,
I love AJ.
The sky's the limit for AJ Brown. I'm definitely higher on AJ Brown than I am Metcalf. I think I would rather AJ Brown over D Hop as well. And then if it's a debate between him, Ridley, and Diggs. So I put him 6, but honestly, he should be higher. And I'm saying that.
So I have him 4. You have him 6 currently. The next guy we have is D Hop. He has ECR is number 7. And I have him currently as number 5. You have him currently as number 5 as well.
Yeah, probably gonna be 6 though. Probably gonna put AJ
I think the thing for me with Hopkins is, and I was looking at his numbers while I was doing the projections for the Cardinals, and the thing that I found so intriguing about DeAndre Hopkins is that he did. Everyone thought that he was going to go to Arizona, and that his target share was going to decrease, and that he wasn't going to be the same wide receiver. And Nuke came in, and he got 160 targets. And so his target share literally did not change whatsoever. And his efficiency in terms of how many yards he got, how many passes he caught, that didn't change. The only thing really that he struggled with this particular year was touchdowns. Yeah. So, and I think if Hopkins comes in and does Hopkins stuff, gets 160 targets again, gets 115 to 120 catches again, like he can, gets 1,400 yards again, which I think he can. It's not outlandish for him to do that. He's done it in consecutive years before, and he scores 10 touchdowns instead of 6 touchdowns. I think that changes the dynamic on him altogether, and it moves him from finishing number 5 to number 3 or 4. And so I would say number 3 is where I would land him. And I think that he's efficient. He's good. He is on the older side, so I would watch out for his age, but that's why I have him 5. If I was choosing players to take over him, I would only take AJ Brown, Diggs, Hill, and Adams over him at this point, because I think that he is that good of a receiver and that consistent of a receiver that if you can snag a guy like him, especially where his ADP is right now, it's 11th overall. So between 11 and 15 in your drafts as your first wide receiver, that's not a bad pick at all.
Yeah, 11's a little high for me though, for D-Hop. I'm not going to lie. I do like Hopkins a lot, and I think with him, as you said, it didn't really change last year. The only thing that changed was the touchdowns, but he did have the targets, he had the catches, the yards. I think that all continues this year. I think it might go down just a little bit. He had 160 targets you said last year?
Yeah.
I think I have him projected at 151, so just 9 less targets, just because they have a lot of weapons there. AJ Green, Christian Kirk, Rondell Moore.
Yeah.
And I don't think Rondell Moore is going to be.
I think AJ Green is going to be dead. To be honest.
Oh, I mean that's fair, but it's
Very
still even a dead
low.
AJ Green will get like what 50 targets. Like what do you have?
Yeah. Hold on, I'll look right now.
Like even a dead AJ Green is still a body.
Yeah, I gave him 58 targets. There you go, AJ Green.
Yeah, so that's still 58 targets that goes to someone else.
Yeah, I have Hopkins projected at 157.
Yeah, so about the same. And what he did last year though is pretty much what he did last year is pretty much what I think he'll do this year. I do have him, like I said, a little bit less targets, but I made up for it with the touchdowns. I think he gets more than 6 touchdowns. I have him at 8. So I think that goes up, but maybe he has just a couple less catches, couple less yards, has a little bit more fantasy points than he did last year, or around the same range, but that leaves him at wide receiver 5. And I think he doesn't really finish much higher than that. Don't really think he finishes lower than that, but I think he's kind of in that range, and that's pretty much where he's going to stay unless he gets injured.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's move on to the next guy, ECR, Justin Jefferson, number 8 overall. You have Justin Jefferson. I have Justin Jefferson 8, so I got him in the exact same spot, and you have him 7. Now, Jefferson was absolutely absurdly ridiculous last year. He was very, very good in his rookie season, and the sky is the limit for him. The problem in my mind, and I want to talk quickly about the next 4 or 5 guys, but the problem in my mind with Justin Jefferson is separating his dynasty value and his redraft value, because in redraft, I don't know. Like, I think he's going to get 125 targets again. Like, that's a definite. Like, between 125 and 130. And I think that there's because the first couple games of the season, he really didn't take off until week 3 or 4.
Yeah, so it took him. Yeah,
he could get more of a target share. But even if he stays right around 130, I think he was so efficient in the yardage category that I don't know that that's going to continue for him in 2020. And the only reason why I have him 8 at this point, that's where I said I had him, right? 8. Is because, like I said, there's guys in front of him that I like better, and I don't know if he can keep up with that efficiency. I do think he will. What he loses in his efficiency in the yardage and catches department, he will pick up in touchdowns this year. And so I think he's exactly this year he's going to be exactly what he was the previous year, between 6 to 8 overall and finish, and a very, very good wide receiver 1 for your team.
Yeah, I don't really think Justin Jefferson takes a leap this year or anything, but no. I think what he did last year is what he's going to, like you said, what he's going to do this year. But I think that's very good. Yeah, he could have less yards because he did have 15.9 yards per reception, which was very good. But like you said, it took him until week 3 to get those targets. So instead of 125, maybe he's up to 130, 135, and he gets, instead of 88 catches, he gets 90, 95 catches. And that ends up making the difference with the yards. So I think he's pretty much going to have the exact same season as he did last year, which is good.
Yeah,
he was a wide receiver 6 last year, so I have him as a wide receiver 7. I think just because I have somebody ahead of him at one spot, but I think he's in that range, like you said, 6 to 8. So we're really not far off on Jefferson.
No. The next ranking we have, ECR, is 9 for Terry McLaurin. I have Terry McLaurin 11, and you have Terry McLaurin 10.
He's 9, bro?
Yeah,
that makes him wish I moved him higher.
Make you feel better. Now, I have issues with the ranking, which is probably why I have him 11 at this point. I love Terry McLaurin. Don't get me wrong. I think he's amazing.
Not as much as me.
But Terry McLaurin last year was wide receiver 21 in 15 games. You give him that one extra game, and he would have been like wide receiver 16. In 2019, he was wide receiver 27, and then he had one more year prior to that, right? 2018.
He's only played 2 years.
Okay, yeah. So for me, when I look at Terry McLaurin, he hasn't done it, and I know everyone really likes Fitzmagic and the type of player that he is, and he's fun to watch. But is that going to change Terry McLaurin's value? Like, how much higher can he go with a trash quarterback? And I hate to say that Because people are gonna be like, "Oh my God, Fitzmagic's not try." He's not a good quarterback. Like, let's just be honest with that.
He's not, but man,
he's the best quarterback Terry McLaurin's ever had. So that's fair. But I just don't. I personally see, and I'm ranking him high for my own personal like rankings. I think because like I don't see him getting any higher than like 10.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just because of the way the Redskins offense is, or not the Redskins, the Washington football team. Yikes. Just because of the way the football team is, and the fact that Terry McLaurin in the last couple of years, people have loved him and wanted that breakout. I just don't know if he can go any higher than where he is right now. And that's just a feeling thing. So I might be dead wrong, and he could end up being like a top 6-7 wide receiver, but there's just nothing like usually these breakout wide receivers like CeeDee Lamb, for example, wide receiver 20 last year. He's in an extremely good offense with an extremely good quarterback. And so I can see a higher ceiling breakout for CeeDee Lamb, whereas for Terry McLaurin, yeah, he's in an offense with all the opportunity, but how good is that Washington offense going to be? And I know a lot of people will be like, well, you like Antonio Gibson. Yes, I like Antonio Gibson because we've seen a really bad offense by Ron Rivera produce at the running back position before with Christian McCaffrey. So, I mean, I think the running back position, it's entirely on the running back. Not entirely on the running back. They obviously need an offensive line to have success, but it's on the running back to produce, whereas the wide receiver, a lot is relied on the quarterback to get them the ball. And I think for Terry McLaurin, I don't know if the quarterback that they have is going to be able to effectively do that to the point where he can be a top 5, top 6 wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, and I really do, because Washington is not the best passing team, I don't think, even with Fitz, and he was the wide receiver 21 last year, but you know me with Terry McLaurin, bro. I got to back my boy up.
That's your guy.
Last year he was a monster. Like the first, here, let me try to pull it. I messed up. Hold on. The first 7 weeks of the season, I believe. Yeah, the first 7 weeks of the season, right? He was on pace for 154 targets, 100 catches, 1,300 yards, almost 1,400 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. That was with, who was it? Dwayne Haskins and Kyle Allen with his quarterback?
Yeah.
Right? So that's a top 6 wide receiver right there. 100 catches, 1,400 yards, 6 touchdowns. That's like probably wide receiver. That's around what DeAndre Hopkins did last year. So
I think his biggest problem is going to be the consistency, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, but so Alex Smith took over as the starting quarterback in week 9. And he did have Alex Smith in one of those games. Geez, now I have to refresh the page. Are you kidding me? But he was not the same with Alex Smith.
Right.
I think Alex Smith, like, I know a lot of people love him, and his story was great, and I understand it. And like off the field stuff, it was a fantastic story. It was good to see him back out there, but he was not good at all. Like he was probably he just couldn't throw the ball further than 15 yards. Like physically could not do it.
Yeah.
And McLaurin suffered because of that, because after that, he was on pace for 118 targets, 74 catches, less than 1,000 yards, right. And he did not get a single touchdown with Alex Smith.
Yikes.
He only had 4 touchdowns on the season last year. Do you think Fitzmagic's going to give him more than 4 touchdowns?
Yeah, probably.
And if Fitzmagic
so what? Different offense, different scheme, but like, where was the highest Devontae Parker finished?
He finished 10.
Yeah, see, this is what I'm talking about. I think McLaurin can finish 10.
I think McLaurin's better than Devontae Parker.
That might be fair, but yeah, I don't know.
And like I said,
Washington just scares the crap out of me, and I don't like picking breakout players on bad teams. I've gotten burned by that before.
Devontae Parker was wide receiver 7 in 2019.
Yeah. Okay.
Just saying.
I'm not saying McLaurin's bad.
I had to get my McLaurin love in there. Okay?
I need him to have a good quarterback. I think we all do.
No, I understand.
The ECR for the next guy is number 10. That's Mike Evans. I have him 14.
I have him 15.
Yeah. We are lower on Mike Evans. I think Brady is the quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that is a good thing and a bad thing. But I saw a picture today. It said over under Tom Brady 40 touchdowns this year, and I'm like, I would smash that under so hard.
Yeah,
because Brady is not throwing 40 touchdowns again, and I don't think Brady can throw 40 touchdowns again. I mean, maybe he does, but I think that was about as efficient as Tampa's offense is going to get, and that might just flatline. That might just be what they are. So he could be, what was he last year? Wide receiver 12? Somewhere around there?
Yeah. I think he was wide receiver 12.
What the frick is Mike Evans?
Wide receiver 10.
So I think he's going to be floating right around 10 to 15 this year. He's had problems with injuries in the past, and he's a boomer bust player, and I don't like boomer bust players. Like last year, the guy who drafted Mike Evans in several of the leagues, I avoided him. I had him number 18 overall, I think, in my rankings last year, so I moved him up this year, but he literally busted so many times last season. It's just like, it doesn't help your fantasy team when you have a guy who gets 30 points one week and then gets 2 the next.
Yeah.
So I have him 14 right now just because, like, I think if the value is good enough, I would take him.
Sure.
And I might even move CeeDee Lamb ahead of him. I think the Tampa Bay wide receiver core is going to be so spread out, and I think if you want to draft somebody from that receiver core, you have to draft for value.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't draft for value, you're not gonna get much efficiency out of it. Like if you're drafting Mike Evans in the second round or third round in your draft, you're probably gonna get shafted, to be honest with you. But Mike Evans and Chris Godwin right now are both going off the board as ADP 37 and ADP 34. So it's not horrible, but there's a reason why I've been drafting Antonio Brown in like the 10th round, bro.
Yeah, I get it, man. Antonio Brown, first of all, didn't play the whole year. Chris Godwin missed half the season. OJ Howard got hurt. So, yes, Mike Evans was the wide receiver 10, but he didn't have as much competition as he's probably going to face this year. With everybody healthy, There are just too many weapons to go around. Tom Brady loves to spread the ball.
Tom Brady? Yeah, I don't know.
And, as you said, I don't think he's – and this is coming from the biggest Tom Brady fanboy of all time. I don't think he's throwing 40 touchdowns again. Yep. He's going to be 44 years old. And the way he's been talking this offseason, it sounds like might be it for him too. This might be his last year. So
yeah,
I would not be surprised if Brady still has a good season, throws like 35 touchdowns or something like that. But
his contract a slight decrease of the season, correct?
Yes, it does.
Oh, we timed that perfectly. Sign a 1-day contract with New England.
Do it. Yeah, I think Evans last year he finished 13th in points per game among receivers.
Yeah.
And that was with Godwin missing time, with Antonio Brown signing at the end of the season, like I said. Mm-hmm. OJ Howard missing most of the season. So you add all those things in. I'm not crazy about Mike Evans this year. And as you said, he's inconsistent. I am at wide receiver 15 because of that.
All right, let's talk about the next guy, Mike Thomas. His ECR is number 11 right now. I have him I have him much higher than the ECR. This is one of the differences I have. I have him number 7.
I have him 9.
You have him number 9. So I love Mike Thomas, and I think this actually might have changed recently because I don't know. Yeah, no, it didn't change. So I love Mike Thomas. I don't know why this is a really great value because where I have him ranked is about 5 spots higher than the ECR and 5 spots higher than his ADP, I believe. So I think right now he's getting drafted as like a 3rd round pick, and it's kind of gross for me.
Yep.
Like I don't know why people are. I understand that Drew Brees is gone and that you're gonna fade this guy a little bit because of that, but like let's not pretend that Drew Brees was the only reason why Mike Thomas was good.
I was going to say,
like, Drew Brees is old as dirt and wasn't good over the last couple of years of his career. So, like, I mean, he was good, but he wasn't, like, elite. You know
last season, Brees was not great. No. He really wasn't.
If you're telling me you get a young guy like Jameis Winston under center who can, he might throw 50 interceptions, but he's going to get it to Michael Thomas eventually.
Yeah, that doesn't affect Michael Thomas. I think it's because last year, dude, he was just not good at all. Like points per game wise, he only had 9 points per game. Like he was, which was worse than Odell. It was worse than like Devontae Parker, Emmanuel Sanders. It was worse than Russell Gage.
Yeah.
Right. So like it was Tim Patrick level.
Right.
People just see that and are just like, he's done. And it's because of Drew Brees. He was actually, those games where he played his worst last year was with Drew Brees.
Yeah.
People also don't realize he was really battling that ankle injury all year. He was never 100%. And with Taysom Hill, because people are scared of Taysom Hill, he was good. I mean, he wasn't great, but he was good. He 14 points, 7, 15, 12. That's half PPR. In PPR, he had like 20, I think, or 19. So a little bit higher, but half PPR, 14, 7, 15, 12. That is not bad at all. And that's worst case scenario. You get Jameis Winston in there, and he treats him like Mike Evans, he's going to have a very good year.
Yeah, agreed. Quickly, let's talk about the last guy and then end the podcast. Allen Robinson, ECR 12. I have him currently.
I have him 12, exact.
13, you have 12? Okay, yeah, so we're not far off. Love A-Rob. Don't love the quarterback situation. He does get a good target share every single game, but they have nobody to turn to except for their new quarterback, Justin Fields.
I hope Fields starts.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to start week 1. It's going to be Dalton.
No.
And then I think by week 2, I'm not even going to give it like 3 weeks.
Yeah, see, I agree with you.
It'll be Justin
So
Fields.
I'll tell you after the show, but yeah, no, I agree with you. I think Fields starts by like week 3, which will be a good thing for Allen Robinson, and that's why I have him 12. If Andy Dalton starts the whole season, like Robinson would not be in my top 12.
Yeah.
I'm scared of Andy Dalton.
But I love Allen Robinson. I think he gets a good target share, and he does a really good job with what he gets. So
if pretty much the same as he's done in the past.
I don't like having Chicago Bears this high, especially when they have Andy Dalton as the projected. Matt Nagy's a brick. He is a stoned brick. If I had Justin Fields and Andy Dalton, it would take me out 5 seconds to make that decision. You know how mad that makes me that he's going to be a complete moron and be like, we're going to train him into the role. Shut up and start the man. Give me a break.
Yeah.
Andy Dalton, really?
I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
I can't.
I just don't know what they're going to
do. Even if you don't think he's ready, just give the guy a shot.
Well, if you don't think he's ready, then I wouldn't do it because you don't want to ruin him. Right?
Yeah, that's fair.
You'd rather just lose with Andy Dalton and stink.
I mean, but I don't think he's gonna not. I don't think he's not gonna be ready unless
right.
he's just unless he's in the quarterback room confused. I mean,
Herbert started week 2 last year.
Yeah, but I think the way that college game has been shifting and the way that we're talking about wide receivers here, but the way that the wide receiver, the way the quarterback position has been shifting in the college game, it's requiring more analysis, more. I guess football IQ than it ever has before, and I think that is making quarterbacks like Justin Herbert, for example, more prepared for the pro game, and so that's why I'm like, just give Justin Fields a shot. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Right. It isn't good game 1.
No, I'm with you, man.
Either way, there's your top 12 ECR and our top 12 overall. Do you have any other thoughts?
No, I think that's pretty much it. We touched on everything.
Okay. All right. There you have it. Wide receivers, top 12 rankings. If you buy the draft guide, you will get our full wide receiver rankings as well as our full tight end and running back rankings. We'll talk about quarterback rankings on the next show, but buy the guide, get the information, win your league.
Yeah, just buy it, bro. See you later.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.